Hello and welcome. Tonight, Finnish authorities arrest pro-Biafran agitator Simon Ekpa on charges of alleged terrorist activities. The National Assembly approves the sum of 1.77 trillion naira loan request of President Bola Tinubu. And a bill to alter the constitution to create a single term of office, or single term of 6 years for the office of president and state governors fails in the House of Representatives. On sports news tonight, Edo Queens eyes bronze as they take on Egypt's Masar women in Friday's third-place match at the CAF Women's Champions League in Casablanca, Morocco.
In business news, over 62% of Nigerian households are food insecure, and that's according to the National Bureau of Statistics' 5th General Household Survey.
And from the nation's capital, former Minister of Petroleum, Dezeni Alison Madueke, seeks to amend her suit challenging the order obtained by the EFCC for final forfeiture of her seized assets.
And in international news from London, judges at the International Criminal Court have issued arrest warrants for Israel's Prime Minister and former Defense Minister, as well as the military commander of Hamas.
We begin in Finland, where the Finnish National Bureau of Investigation says it has requested that Mr. Simon Ekpa be remanded on suspicion of public exhortation for an offense committed with terrorist intent. Mr. Simon Ekpa is charged alongside 4 other persons on suspicion of financing a terrorist offense, according to a statement by the Finnish police on Thursday. Though the police statement did not mention Ekpa's name, local Finnish news website Helsingin Sanomat listed his name in its report of the case. The police statement noted that the requests for remand are related to a criminal investigation in which a dual citizen of Finland and Nigeria, born in the 1980s, is suspected of public exhortation to an offense committed with terrorist intent. It adds that the police suspect that the man has furthered his efforts from Finland in such a way that has resulted in violence against civilians and public authorities and other crimes in southeast Nigeria. Well, back here in Nigeria, the military has applauded the arrest of the pro-Biafran agitator Simon Ekpa. Now, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, says he's optimistic that Finland will extradite Mr. Ekpa to Nigeria to face justice. General Musa sees this as a significant step towards bringing the pro-Biafran agitator to justice for his alleged role in orchestrating violence in Nigeria's southeast region. The Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Buba, reiterates that the defense chief had consistently called for Mr. Ekpa's arrest, citing his deep involvement in fueling terrorism in southeast Nigeria. General Buba and the Director of Defense Information, Brigadier General Tukur Guzo, in their separate statement described the arrest as a key victory in the anti-terror fight and an indication that the international community is in synergy with Nigeria in its efforts to fight terrorism. Still talking security, well, the Senate has adopted a resolution asking the Nigerian Armed Forces to establish a super camp in Guzamala local government area and deploy adequate personnel to Abadam and Mate local government areas of Borno State. The Senate called for the deployment of additional security personnel to Guzamala, Abadam and Mate local government areas in Borno State, following a motion sponsored by Senator Mohammed Tahir Mungono, representing Borno North, on the urgent need to address insecurity in the region. In the motion presented on the floor of the Senate, which has endured years of insurgent attacks, and while acknowledging the commendable efforts of the Nigerian Armed Forces in restoring relative peace to parts of the state, he noted that communities remain vulnerable. Now, Senator Mungono expressed concern over the continued occupation of these communities by Boko Haram insurgents, adding that it has inflicted severe hardship on the local population and hindered economic recovery.
distinguished senators, it may interest you to know that local government, Guzamala local government, which is one local government from my senatorial district, and a neighboring local government to my own local government of Monguno, is completely under the tight control of Boko Haram insurgents, because of the fact that not a single security personnel is found in the whole local government. As a result, civil authority is lost, and Boko Haram are effectively in control of that local government. That they have imposed taxes on people, they have imposed levies on people, and there is no security personnel to challenge them, and there is no civil authority.
All the Nigerian armed forces to establish a super camp at Guzamala local government area, and mobilize adequate personnel to serve, to secure Abadam and multi-local government areas of Borno State. Those in favor of this prayer, please say aye. Those in favor of this prayer, please say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it.
Staying with the federal legislature, the National Assembly has approved the loan request of 1.77 trillion naira from President Bola Tinubu. The president had on Tuesday, in separate letters to both chambers, requested for the approval of the loan for part funding of the 9.7 trillion naira deficit in the 2024 budget. The Senate, upon receipt of the request, mandated its Committee on Local and Foreign Debts to expeditiously work on it and report to the upper chamber within 24 hours. Our National Assembly correspondent, Gloria Umezoke, now reports.
Lawmakers received a request from President Bola Tinubu for a $2.2 billion loan. The Committee on Local and Foreign Debts, on the last day of plenary for the week, reports back to the Senate. The chairman of the committee, Senator Aliyu Wamako, in the report titled Implementation of New External Borrowing of 1.767 trillion naira in the 2024 Appropriation Act through the issuance of Eurobonds, recommends approval of the request.
Key benefits: addressing critical projects under 2024 Appropriation Act. 2. Supporting the debt management strategy to reduce borrowing costs, extend debt maturity, and ease domestic market pressure. Borrowed funds will drive economic growth and stability. The committee urges the Senate to approve
of the new external borrowing through the issuance of Eurobond in the international capital market. There was no dissenting voice in the chamber as the lawmakers voted, granting expeditious approval.
This should have been something that would have taken longer time. They show sacrifice, people who show sacrifice for the interest of the country by working around the clock to make sure that you get everything done. And not only done, but properly done. Those in favor of the report as submitted by the chairman, local and foreign debt, please say aye. Aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it.
Similarly, in the House of Representatives, lawmakers were unanimous in their vote in favor of the loan request.
Those against should say nay, the ayes have it.
The latest loan, which is undoubtedly expected to raise the cost on debt servicing by the federal government, is currently pegged, according to the CBN, at over $3.5 billion. From the National Assembly, Gloria Umezoke, Channels Television News.
The National Economic Council has resolved that states can no longer rely on the national electricity grid and that there is a need to diversify the electricity system in the country to meet the specific energy needs of each of the regions. This was part of the decisions taken at its meeting chaired by Vice President Kashim Shettima at the Presidential Villa, Abuja. The Council also gave 3 states and the Federal Capital Territory that are yet to submit their position on the establishment of state police a 1-week deadline to do so. Our State House correspondent, Emperor Simon, reports.
Vice President Kashim Shettima arrives the Council Chamber of the State House, Abuja, for the 146th meeting of the National Economic Council. Governors, deputy governors, ministers, presidential aides are attending the meeting, chaired by the Vice President. On the agenda of the meeting are issues of rural electrification, alternative energy source, and state police, among others. Between January and November this year, the national electricity grid has collapsed at least 11 times, throwing many parts of the country into darkness and crippling business activities. NEC considers this development worrisome as it presses for states' involvement in electricity generation.
Council resolved that Nigeria needs a reformed and diversified electricity system, apart from the one from National Grid. It further observed that by empowering states, accessibility and affordability of electricity can be enabled, ensuring that all regions can effectively meet their specific energy needs.
To expedite action, a 13-person committee made up of governors, ministers, and heads of parastatals is constituted and mandated to deepen states' engagements within the Electricity Reform Act 2023. Meanwhile, states are encouraged to partner the National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, NASENI, for solar energy development and rural electrification.
The Council urged NASENI to help the state governments in repairing the broken down tractors in different states, and urge them to continue with these great initiatives. Impressed by that, most of the subnational governments has expressed willingness to henceforth partner and procure, patronize NASENI in making sure that all these efforts and initiative of theirs comes to fruition.
NEC also received an update on the establishment of state police.
The Council mandated these remaining states and FCT to make their submissions within the next 1 week, and resolved to present a consolidated state's position on the state police to the National Economic Council at our next meeting.
The Federation account is also presented.
Gentlemen of the press, thank you for your time.
NEC received a presentation by the National Chairman of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission seeking for an alternative funding. From the Presidential Villa, Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Back to the National Assembly, and this time a bill to alter the Constitution to create a single term of 6 years for the office of President and state governors has failed in the House of Representatives. The bill, sponsored by Honorable Ikenga Gochinyere, sought to also provide that all elections be held on a single day. When the bill, which was scheduled for second reading, was put to vote, lawmakers in the Green Chamber voted against it. Our National Assembly correspondent Terry Kumi reports.
Lawmakers in the Green Chamber convened to wrap plenary for the week. A constitution amendment bill for a single 6-term tenure for the president and state governors fails to scale second reading. The bill, sponsored by Honorable Ikenga Gochinyere, also sought to provide that all elections be held on a single day. However, another constitution amendment bill for the creation of a new state scaled second reading, closely followed by a bill to increase the number of FCT High Court judges and another seeking to further empower the Minister of Works.
My bill seeks to alter the constitution to create a new state, which is Ibadan and Oyo Gbomosho. The proposal is to make Ibadan a state. It's not just a constitutional restructuring, but a forward-thinking move that will address several socio-political and economic concerns.
I rise for a bill for an act to amend the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, number of judges Act Cap H6 laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004 to provide for increase in the number of judges in the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja.
What I'm saying is that we need to deliberately create paths along our road that will accommodate utilities and accommodate, give good experience for travelers. What I'm saying is the Ministry of Work should make provision. It will saddens my heart that, imagine us traveling 20, 30 kilometers and we realize that there is no provision at all.
The House then adopts a motion on the need to investigate the activities of anti-corruption and transparency units in all MDAs in the country.
Aware that the unit is supposed to be watchdog or anti-corruption division service with the responsibilities of monitoring the activities of federal government, ministries, departments, and agencies are reporting any matter that is regarded as corrupt practice to the ICPC for further actions. Worried that despite these circulars and efforts, corrupt practice still persists in most MDAs, and if not checked, corruption will continue forever.
In the meantime, the House is to investigate age falsification in the civil service and has also resolved to invite the head of service for an investigative hearing. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
In part two, after the break, the Nigeria Governors Forum says it will soon come up with a position on the ongoing tax reforms by the federal government. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, broadcasting live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Phoenix authorities arrest pro-Biafran agitator Simon Ekpa on charges of alleged terrorist activities. National Assembly approves the 1.77 trillion naira loan request of President Bola Tinubu. And the bill to alter the Constitution to create a single term of 6 years for the office of President and State Governors fails in the House of Representatives. Better welfare packages are on the way for officers and troops of the Nigerian Army to enhance optimal operational performance in their places of deployment. That assurance is coming from the Acting Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Olufemi Oluyede, who was a guest at the closing ceremony of the 2nd Regimental Sergeant Majors Convention 2024 in Apapa, Lagos. The Army Chief adds that officers and men should expect a reshufflement across the various formations. It's the maiden official visit of the Acting Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Olufemi Oluyede, to the 81 Division, Lagos, since his appointment on October the 30th. The Army Chief arrives to an inspection of guard mounted in his honor at Nigerian Army School of Finance and Administration Auditorium in Arakan Barracks, Apapa, Lagos. All seated in the hall for the closing ceremony of the 2nd Regimental Sergeant Majors Convention 2024 with the theme Fostering Improved Discipline and Regimentation in the Nigerian Army for Enhanced Capacity to Accomplish Constitution Responsibilities Within a Joint Environment.
You, the Regimental Sergeant Majors, are the hope of the Nigerian Army because both the young officers and the soldiers look up to you for mentorship in regimentation, traditions, customs, and ethics of the service. Thus, it is incumbent on you to be exemplary and highly responsive in discharging your duties.
Speaking with journalists after the event, General Oluyede spelled out his vision for the officers and men of the Nigerian Army.
My vision is to have a set of troops with good welfare packages that will encourage them to do their job well, and secure Nigeria, because I've been part of the architecture for the past 5 years. So I know the trajectory, and I'm going to follow that trajectory. But you expect some rejigging, some reshufflement, and from there we'll take it on. But it's the same army, and we know where we're going to.
Elsewhere in Abuja, the Defense Headquarters briefs on the aim of the armed forces in the ongoing counter-terrorism and counter-insurgency war. The Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Buba, explains that troops operating in the northeast have neutralized the terrorist commander, Munzir Ya Audu, and about 115 other terrorists through a well-coordinated attack.
We are collecting intelligence. We are hunting down the terrorists. And we are striking locations in which they are confirmed to be hibernating. And in this kind of warfare that we are engaged in, our operations are intelligence-based. That is the only way we can really succeed in decimating the terrorists.
While speaking in strong terms to find and destroy all terrorists and their hideouts wherever they may be hiding in the country, he adds that serious effort has been put in place at dismantling the military capabilities as well as to destroy the terror networks of all terror groups as troops continue to actively target their logistics bases and other structures that have affiliation to terror groups. The Nigeria Governors Forum has condemned the rising insecurity in the country, especially the recent spate of attacks and killings in the northwest geopolitical zone. Kaduna State Governor Uba Sani, who addressed journalists after the meeting of the governors in Abuja, explained that the NGF will continue to collaborate with the federal government to address the challenges. He adds that the Nigeria Governors Forum will soon come up with a position on the ongoing tax reforms by the federal government.
No, tax reforms have not been concluded. We started the deliberation at this meeting, but the consultation is still ongoing. And I have no doubt in my mind in our next meeting we should be able to come out with a position, but we are still discussing. And as you are aware, we have been working closely with all the relevant security agencies. And this insecurity issue is not only in the northwest or northeast, it's all over Nigeria. We all face various security challenges, but we are working closely with the relevant security agencies, and we are very hopeful that it's a matter of time. All these issues will be over by the grace of God.
Meanwhile, the Deputy Speaker, House of Representatives, Benjamin Kalu, who also attended the meeting to brief the governors on the progress made in the ongoing constitution amendment, told journalists that the lawmakers will soon be embarking on regional and zonal visitations to get the full buy-in of the state houses of assembly.
Without representing units, there is no Nigeria. And if you ignore them, you will have the wheel of progress towards realizing our objective with regards to this constitutional review will be slowed down. And we consider it important to come and engage with them, to bring them up to speed, taking them through our work plan, what we have achieved so far, and where we are headed. And we've had a robust discussion. And I must say, the governors made beautiful contributions, and they are in support of the constitutional review. We also let them know, inform them that we're going to be visiting their states and the geopolitical zones to address the opinion of the public in their various zones with regards to the thematic area of the constitution that we're looking at.
All right, let's head to the nation's capital now, where Terry Kumi is standing by to give us the latest from our Abuja studios. Over to you, Terry.
Well, thank you very much, Ayo. Let's head to the courts now, where the former Minister of Petroleum Resources, Desiani Alison Madueke, has sought to amend her suits before Justice Ekpa of the Federal High Court, Abuja, challenging the order obtained by the EFCC for final forfeiture of her seized assets. At the resumed hearing, no counsel appeared for the EFCC. Justice Ekpa asked her counsel if he had received processes from the anti-graft agency, and he responded in the affirmative. The lawyer, however, informed the courts that they had filed a motion to amend their processes and that the commission had been duly served. Justice Ekpa subsequently adjourned the matter until February 17, 2025, for hearing on the motion to amend the originating process. The ex-minister had sought an order extending the time to seek leave to apply to the court for an order to set aside EFCC's public notice issued to conduct a public sale on her property. She said she was not given fair hearing in all the proceedings leading to the orders. The EFCC, however, says most of the depositions in Mrs. Alison Madueke's suit were untrue, contrary to her deposition in the affidavit, that most of the cases which led to the final forfeiture of the contested property were heard at various times and determined by the court. Still ahead on the news at 10, over 62% of Nigerian households are food insecure, and that's according to the National Bureau of Statistics' 5th General Household Survey. That's on Business News. Stay with us. Welcome back to the news at 10 live on Channels Television. Nigeria's lottery sector has contributed over 200 billion naira to the nation's economy. That's according to the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives at the book launch and 60th birthday of the Director General of the National Lottery Regulatory Commission, Mr. Lanre Gbajabiamila. Mr. Kalu adds that the sector has contributed to the development of the healthcare sector, education, and fostered innovations. Our correspondent Emanuela Ekele reports.
Friends, family, and associates gathered to launch a book in honor of the Director General of the National Lottery Regulatory Commission, Mr. Lanre Gbajabiamila. He's accompanied by his wife and family members as he makes his way into the hall. Government officials are in attendance, including the Deputy Speaker, House of Representatives, Right Honorable Benjamin Kalu, the Chief of Staff to the President, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, Minister of Special Duties, Mr. Zephaniah Gisalo, as well as the representative of the Chairman of Channels Media Group, Dr. John Momo, Mr. Chamberlain Uso. Speakers eulogized the efforts of the Director General to the development of the nation's gaming industry.
Under Lanre Gbajabiamila's leadership, Nigeria's lottery sector contributed over 200 billion naira in 2022. They are not clapping for me, they are clapping for you.
The book is reviewed by a business strategist and legal practitioner, Mr. Charles Omole, who speaks on how the book will inspire its readers.
This book dedicated a few chapters into actually the workings, the inner workings of the lottery sector. If you want to know actually how the lottery sector works in Nigeria, there are chapters there. It's like a school textbook in terms of explaining the inner workings of the sector. I think that's very enlightening, in addition to everything else the book contains.
Titled Mr. Lottery, the author speaks on the impact of the book on the gaming industry.
This is a book that I hope will teach and entertain at the same time. Now let's get something straight about this book. If you start seeing my face in your dreams tonight, I'm sorry, but this book does come with a side effect. Just remember, every chapter was written with same care that I put in regulating the lottery sector. So basically, it's all in good fun, and anything can happen.
The Chief of Staff to the President, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, shares his thought on the contribution of the Lottery Commission to the development of the nation.
The numbers I understand is brought about 200 billion to the coffers of the federal government, and that is very significant considering where they were coming from before he got in. He was in charge of Lagos Lottery, and then federal, and then the National Lottery.
The celebration climaxes with the cutting of the cake to mark the 60th birthday of the author. Emanuela Ekele, Channels Television News.
And as the UN Climate Conference enters the home stretch, the latest text has sparked mixed reactions, and it has been described as containing the good, the bad, and the ugly options. The text has fallen short of the expectations of almost every participating country, especially the developing nations, failing to specify a concrete figure of the amount expected in climate finance, despite developing nations demanding at least $1.3 trillion in grant-based finance. Nigeria also got its first direct access entity accreditation agreement signed with the Green Climate Fund on the sideline of the conference. Our environment correspondent Ayola Kasim now reports on today's happenings at COP29.
Has fallen short, fails to specify, very frustrating. These are some of the words used to describe the text released Thursday morning by the COP presidency.
Excellency.
Developing countries contend that while it recognizes the need to prioritize grants, it remains silent on the critical scale of the new finance goal, instead shifting pressure onto the countries to mobilize more domestic resources.
We state firmly that NCQG cannot be another $100 billion goal, which did not take into account the needs and priorities of all developing countries. This goal or quantum are the main mandate we have here at COP29, and the success of COP29 shall be measured by the responsiveness of the quantum to needs and priorities in trillions of dollars.
For the countries in the EU, the current text offers no progress for ambitious national climate plans.
This cannot and must not be our response to the suffering of millions of people around the world. We must do better.
Colombia says the critical objective of the COP is now just an empty placeholder, with no clear quantum defined for the donors, urging parties to stop playing politics with lives.
So I invite all the parties to elevate the political debate. The countries that need the finance cannot be in the middle of your political games.
Just back from the G20 summit in Rio, the United Nations Secretary General says failure is not an option in Baku.
And so I appeal directly to ministers and negotiators. Soften hard lines. Navigate the path through your differences and keep your eyes on the bigger picture. Never forget what it is at stake. This is a COP to deliver justice in the face of climate catastrophe.
Meanwhile, the good news for Nigeria is the signed accreditation master agreement with the Green Climate Fund. This means the Development Bank of Nigeria can now catalyze finance up to $250 million for climate projects in the country through the GCF.
What makes this one different is first, these are concessionary funding, which is quite almost like next to not in terms of cost. Two, these are specifically for projects around climate adaptation or mitigation. So those are two things. And three, projects along this line, can be packaged, and when they meet the criteria of GCF, we access this funding.
Last week, multilateral development banks announced a significant boost in climate finance for low and middle income countries. This will reach $120 billion a year by 2030, with another $65 billion mobilized from the private sector. But a new goal here in Baku, we need to mobilize the finance developing countries need to protect their people from climate disaster. From the Olympic Stadium in Baku, Azerbaijan, the venue of COP29, Ayola Kasim, Channels Television News.
Well, that's a wrap from the nation's capital. For the rest of the news, let's go back to Ayo in Lagos.
Many thanks, Terry. Nigeria's Minister of State for Petroleum Resources Oil, Heineken Lokpobiri, has been praised for his hands-on approach to leading the oil and gas sector. During a two-day visit to the offshore facilities of the NNPCL First E&P joint venture in Yenagoa, Bayelsa State, the minister renewed the government's commitment to boosting crude oil production and urged operators to meet new output targets.
Guests gathered for a night of celebration and reflection at the Nigerian Content Tower in Yenagoa, with speeches commending the sector's progress and cultural performances by the award-winning Bayelsa Council of Art and Culture, adding color to the evening. The head of Joint Venture Investment Management at NNPC Upstream Investment Management Services, Olarinwaju Igodo, assured the minister of their readiness to meet the new production target, emphasizing their track record of achievements.
Currently, within this asset, Formula 53, our production has been steady around 56,000 barrels a day. The plan is to move to 70,000 barrels with the upcoming of the Anyala infills. And just today, the minister set a new target for us.
Community leaders also expressed confidence in the JV's efforts. The traditional ruler representing the Kefeso oil-producing host communities noted the positive impact of the partnership on local development, while the chief of staff to the Bayelsa state government highlighted efforts by the Bayelsa state government.
Not enough to pay lip service to this critical aspect of development. The NCDCM must make community content a strategic priority.
Yes, you deal with the communities, but somehow, when challenges come, it is the state government that still jumps into it. We spend sleepless nights trying to bring peace and harmony so that we all will have the benefits of the increased production that we are all talking about.
The managing director of First E&P Development Company Limited reiterated the company's commitment to the president's mandate.
On her shoulders lie the objective of making sure gas can actually be an economic enabler for this country.
Senator Lokwabri applauded the JV's commitment to excellence, expressing optimism about their capacity to deliver on production targets.
When I became minister, in August 2023, we were doing about 1 million barrels a day. Today we are doing 1.8 million barrels a day. And this 1.8 million barrels per day that we're producing today, First E&P is a critical contributor to this 1.8 million barrels a day.
With key stakeholders aligning to achieve Nigeria's crude oil production goals, the industry appears poised for growth and transformation. The two-day visit by Senator Lokwabri and the ensuing commitment signal that the nation's oil and gas sector is firmly on the path to success.
Business News is up next with Will Ebo.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Ayotunde. A new survey by the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, shows that 62.4% of Nigerian households are food insecure, struggling to access nutritious or preferred food due to financial constraints. The findings are contained in the NBS 5th edition of the General Household Survey Panel, covering 4,715 households nationwide. The report highlights a sharp rise in food insecurity, with concerns about food sufficiency increasing from 36.9% in 2019 to 62.4% in 2023. About 63.8% of households reported eating fewer types of food, and 60.5% consumed less than needed, as price hikes on major food items affected 71% of households. The survey also examines migration, remittances, early childhood development, and climate shocks. As Nigerian consumers continue to grapple with rising prices, the real estate market is also being impacted heavily as property rental and sales prices hit record highs. According to the MD CEO, Rydal Mills Limited, Mrs. Modupe Angus, sitting tenants are getting as much as 200% rent increases. She was a guest on Business Morning earlier today.
So sitting tenants are also affected, even though incoming tenants are significantly affected because they have no choice. But a sitting tenant can negotiate his ways, well, if he has a considerate landlord.
Maybe good behavior.
Not necessarily. He shouldn't have a relationship that will show character behavior on his property. Having said that, owners and investors, they are also looking at increasing prices because of inflation, devaluation of the naira, the use of the funds. What your money can buy for you now is like 50% of what he could buy for you a couple of months ago. I'm not talking about a year ago. We have a project that we're marketing at the moment, and would you believe that the price of that project has increased on 3 occasions? And it has not been delivered yet. So everybody has to meet up with the cost of funds. So a landlord might have international commitments, and he would also look at the cost of the funds that he's getting from the property that is on rent.
Let's look at Bitcoin now, which has surpassed $98,000 for the first time, fueled by expectations of a second Donald Trump presidency. The price surge is linked to improved liquidity, rising institutional adoption, and a regulatory shift that has become more supportive for cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin has gained over 127% this year, with predictions it could reach $100,000 by the end of 2024 and double by 2025. We turn our attention now to the domestic equities market, which ended today's session in the red, a reversal of Wednesday's gains. Here's Laddie Williams with the highlights.
Hello and welcome to the stock market reports. Well, the Nigerian All-Share Index stock market snapped 3 days of gains at the close of trade today, with a drop of about 177 points, 98,000 level still maintained. Look at the tier 1 banks; they contributed to this downtrend we see today. 0.55 is all red for the tier 1 banks, with the biggest move downward from Axis Core, 3.36%, followed by GTCO down about 2.50%. To the sectors now, we see that drop we see most of the tier 1 banks. That impacted the banking counter, down 1.16%. Consumer goods up 0.39%. With the likes of Dangote Sugar, Cadbury, we saw buy interest with those stocks, propping up that counter, and that's how your money performed today. Fingers crossed for the TGIF trading tomorrow.
And it's back to Ayotunde for the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you so much, Will. U.S. former Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz has withdrawn his name from consideration as Attorney General. This comes after days of debate over whether to release a congressional report on sexual misconduct allegations against him. Here's Sami Pusey with other international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Judges at the International Criminal Court have issued arrest warrants for Israel's Prime Minister and former Defense Minister, as well as the military commander of Hamas. A statement said a pre-trial chamber had rejected Israel's challenges to the court's jurisdiction and issued warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant. A warrant was also issued for Mohammed Daif of Hamas, although Israel has said he was killed in an airstrike in Gaza in July. The judges said there were reasonable grounds the 3 men bore criminal responsibility for alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity during the war between Israel and Hamas. The Israeli Prime Minister's office condemned the ICC's decision as anti-Semitic, while Hamas said the warrants for Netanyahu and Gallant set an important historic precedent.
It is not a political decision. It is a decision of a court of justice, of the International Court of Justice. And the decision of the court has to be respected and implemented.
Meanwhile, dozens of people are reported to have been killed in overnight Israeli airstrikes in northern Gaza. Paramedics and Hamas-affiliated media said at least 66 people were killed, including women and children, when several houses sheltering displaced people were hit near Kamal Adwan Hospital in the town of Beit Lahir. Another 22 people were killed in a strike on a house in the northern Sheikh Radwan neighborhood of Gaza City, according to the Hamas-run Civil Defense Agency. There was no immediate comment from the Israeli military. It has recently intensified its offensive in northern Gaza, saying it is stopping Hamas from regrouping. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says his country has been attacked with a new Russian rocket and suggests it has the characteristics of an intercontinental ballistic missile. On Telegram, he said, "Our crazy neighbor once again showed what he really is and how he despises dignity, freedom, and people's lives in general." Russia has yet to comment on the allegations that an ICBM was used. If true, this would be the first time such a missile was used in combat, not just in war, but in history. A row has broken out at the COP29 climate talks as leading countries say a draft deal risked going back on a historic agreement to reduce the use of planet-warming fossil fuels. The UK, European Union, New Zealand and Ireland said the proposed agreement was unacceptable. Developing nations said they are unhappy that a pot of money has not been agreed to help them tackle climate change. Nearly 200 countries are meeting in Baku in Azerbaijan to try to decide on the next steps in tackling climate change. A 43-year-old man has been fatally shot by police in Las Vegas after he called 911 for help while fighting off an intruder in his home. The family of Brandon Durham, including his 15-year-old daughter who was hiding in a nearby room, have asked for the officer to be fired. Mr. Durham's teenage daughter said she was disgusted with Las Vegas police as they treated him like the suspect, not the victim. A lawyer for Alexander Bookman, the officer who shot Mr. Durham, said he committed no crimes. Zambian authorities have said a fugitive Zambian lawmaker with a bounty on his head has been arrested in Zimbabwe. Emmanuel J.J. Banda, who was facing robbery charges, is accused of having escaped from custody in August as he awaited to appear in court. He is said to have escaped through a window at Chipata Central Hospital in Eastern Province, where he had been admitted following his arrest, and he was being guarded by police and prison officers. The police then issued a bounty of 2 million Zambian kwacha, or $72,000, for his arrest. And a banana duct-taped to a wall has fetched $6.2 million at Sotheby's in New York, 4 times higher than pre-sale estimates.
It's yours. Congratulations. Thank you very much indeed. Pedal number 17.
The auction house says Chinese cryptocurrency entrepreneur Justin Sun outbid 6 other rivals to get the artwork titled Comedian installation. Mr. Sun was quoted as saying, "In the coming days, I will personally eat the banana as part of this unique artistic experience." The taped banana, now perhaps one of the most expensive fruits ever sold, was actually bought earlier in the day for a mere 35 cents, according to the New York Times. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. Edo Queens head coach Moses Aduku says he's optimistic the Nigerian representatives and WAFU champions will not be returning empty-handed when they face Egypt's Masara ladies in Friday's third-place game in the CAF Champions League. That's CAF Champions Women's League. Both teams played a goalless draw during the group phase, and Coach Aduku says they are going for the win this time around. The Nigerian girls are hoping to get the second, or to be the second Nigerian team to win bronze after Bayelsa Queens, who clinched the bronze in 2022.
I'm expecting my guys to go all out and see how they can win the bronze medal. I know it's not going to be an easy one. The Egyptian team is also a good team. The last time we played them, it was goalless. But I believe Goalless will not give us the thrones, so definitely we need to go all out to win.
We prepared very well for this competition, for us to carry the cup home and for us to create a history for ourselves. But we are ready for the game for tomorrow against Egyptian. I strongly believe that by the special grace of God, we will go back home with the top position.
9-time champions, the Super Falcons of Nigeria, will know their opponents for the group phase of next year's Women Africa Cup of Nations competition when the draw is conducted at the Technique Center of the Mohammed the 6th Football Complex in Salé outside Rabat, Morocco, on Friday evening. Now, the field of 12 finalist teams will be framed into 3 groups of 4 teams each, with the top 2 teams in each group, as well as the best 2 third-place teams in the 3 groups advancing to the quarterfinals of the competition scheduled for Morocco. Now, the 13th Women AFCON finals will take place from July the 5th to the 26th next year. Chelsea FC captain Reece James has suffered another setback after injuring a hamstring in training. The 24-year-old missed much of last season after undergoing hamstring surgery, which was designed to help him overcome a series of injuries, but returned to action last month. The Blues manager Enzo Maresca has played down concerns about a long-term layoff, but confirmed James will miss Saturday's Premier League game at Leicester City. And the main news again. Finnish authorities in Finland have arrested pro-Biafran agitator Simon Ekpa on charges of alleged terrorist activities. The National Assembly has approved the 1.77 trillion naira loan request of President Bola Tinubu. And a bill to alter the constitution to create a single term of 6 years for the office of president and state governors has failed in the House of Representatives. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ayo Tunde Olugo. You have a good night.